There are moments you remember your entire life, not because they were beautiful, but because they marked the exact second you stopped being invisible. For me, that moment happened on a cold Tuesday evening, sitting across from my parents at a kitchen table that still smelled like the roast dinner I had cooked with my own two hands. My father slid a piece of paper toward me. Just a slip of paper, folded once, the way you fold a receipt you don't want anyone to read. "My girl," he said, in that warm voice he only used when he needed something. "Your brother, he's in a bit of trouble." I already knew the word trouble. It was a word that had lived in our house my whole life. It was the word that explained why my room got smaller every year while his got bigger. It was the word that followed me to every family gathering, every holiday, every time someone held out their hand and said, "We're family, and family helps." The paper was a bank statement. The number on it made my stomach drop into my shoes. 20,000, my mother whispered. And for a second, I thought she was actually upset. Then she said the words I had heard 1,000 times before. "You've always been the strong one, sweetheart. You've never once let us down." I looked at her, and I wanted to ask them all the questions I had carried for years. Why does strength always get mistaken for a duty? Why does the good child always have to pay for the loud one? Why does being reliable mean being taken for granted? But I didn't say any of it. I had learned long ago that my voice only mattered when it agreed with theirs. So I did what I always did. I nodded. I said yes. I signed that paper with the same pen that I had used to pay for their repairs, their holidays, their rescue, after every single bad decision they made. I didn't know it yet, but that slip of paper was about to teach me the most painful lesson of my entire life. That the people who push you into debt aren't always the ones who owe it. And sometimes, the person you think is your biggest burden is the one who saves you from everything. Because what I didn't know that Tuesday evening was that my husband, the quiet man sitting in the next room, had been watching me for years. The first week, I didn't tell my husband, Daniel. I kept it from him the way I kept every family secret, buried beneath the surface of a smile that said everything is fine. I told myself I was protecting him, that my parents' chaos was mine to bear, that I would sort it out quietly and never let him see the strain. But lies have a way of leaking out, especially the lies we tell ourselves. I started working later. I picked up extra shifts at my job, told myself it was for a little something. I skipped lunch so often that my coworkers started leaving plates on my desk, that small kindness that should have been a wake-up call. I grew thin, then tired, then silent, and every night when Daniel came home and held me, I pushed him away and told him I was fine. The breaking point came on a Thursday, in the middle of a grocery store. I watched the woman in front of me pay with a card, and I realized my own card had been maxed out for months, and I had no idea how we were going to feed ourselves. I stood in the frozen aisle and cried. Cried like the girl I had been, before I became everyone's answer. When I finally came home, Daniel was sitting at the table, and on the table in front of him, there was the same bank statement, the 20,000, the whole truth. "I know," he said, his voice so soft it almost hurt. I froze. "Know what?" "Everything. I have known for a month, Angela. I watched you work yourself into the ground. I watched them take and take and take, and you never said a single word." I waited for him to be angry. I waited for him to give me the speech about honesty, about trust, about the life I had built to match on a lie. But he didn't. Instead, he got up and pulled me into his arms, and he held me the way you hold something you're afraid of losing. "They've done this your whole life," he said, "and you've never once let anyone fight for you. So tonight, you're going to learn what it feels like to not be alone." Then he told me what he'd been planning for a month. He hadn't just found the debt. He had traced it. He had found every loan my parents had taken out in my name, every payment they had promised and never made, every signature they had forged, every lie they had told me about their temporary situation. He had the paperwork, he had the receipts, and he had the bank. "No more," he said. "From today you do not carry a single thing of their weight. I am taking it over. I am taking you over." I tried to warn him. I tried to tell him that my parents would be furious, that they would never speak to us again, that the family would call me selfish. And his answer was the moment my heart finally began to heal. "Good. Let them be angry. Let them be alone. Because the people who love you don't push you into debt, Angela. They stand in front of you and take the blow." It was the first time in my life someone had ever told me I didn't have to be strong. It was the first time someone ever made me feel that being protected wasn't a weakness. And for the first time, I saw myself not as everyone's safety net, but as a woman who was finally allowed to be saved. The next morning, I made a choice I had never dared to make before. I said no, and I meant it. When my mother called, I could already hear the edge in her voice. The polite question first, "How are you?" And then the inevitable turn, the one that always came like a script she had rehearsed her whole life. "So, about the second payment, sweetheart, your brother says the bank called." "No," I said. The word felt strange on my tongue, like a word I had never spoken out loud. "There won't be a second payment." There was silence. Then the voice shifted, hard and cold. "What do you mean no? You can't just say no. You've never said no. We are your family." "I've been your family," I said, and my voice stayed steady for the first time in decades. "And I have paid enough. The debt is in your name. My husband has the paperwork, the forged signatures, everything. If you touch my credit again, I will go to the bank and I will go to the police." I heard her breath catch. I heard the whole weight of every year I had given her, every quiet sacrifice, every prayer I never kept, every fine I said when I was breaking, settle over the phone line. "You'd destroy your own family," she whispered. "No," I said. "You did that. I just finally stopped trying to fix it." And that was the end. Not a battle, not a scream, just a quiet word that closed a door I had kept open my entire life for them. They tried to reach me through my brother, through friends, through every guilt trip they could manufacture. But for the first time, I didn't break. Because every time they pushed, there was a man beside me who didn't push back. He just stood there, holding the weight. It didn't take them long to find out what I now know. My parents stopped calling. The debt was paid, not by them, but by me and the man who loved me, because he said my peace was worth more than their pride. And slowly, quietly, I started to believe him. I don't hate my parents. Somewhere along the way, I learned that hating them kept me tangled in the same rope they pulled for years. Instead, I grieved. I grieved the daughter I used to be, the one who thought love meant bleeding for people who took and took. And then I let her go. Because here's what I know now, sitting here whole. The strongest woman is not the one who carries everyone else's weight. She is the one who finally puts it down. And she is the one who lets the person who truly loves her stand in front of her, take the blow, and prove that she was never meant to do it alone. My parents taught me I was their safety net. But my husband taught me I was my own woman, with a heart worth protecting, and a life that had never been meant to pay for anyone else's choices. And that, I finally understand, is the sweetest revenge of all. It is not getting even. It is simply getting free.